And what is up, YouTube? So we're on YouTube and we're on Instagram. This is the Journey Live. No, that's your stuff.
Oh, it's Journey?
This is
I'm back.
this is the Gathering live, and we're doing this on Instagram and YouTube right now. So we're going to kind of change things up a little bit with this and the format of everything. In just a minute, I'm going to do our lesson first, and then I'm going to show you the game that y'all can play at home with your family. So you could do this against your brothers or sisters. You could do this against your parents. It could be kids versus parents. It could be all the guys versus all the girls, mom and dad versus each other, or however you want to work it. But the game tonight, what you're going to need, and if y'all want to go and grab those things right now, you're going to need some dice. So go get some of those board games that you've got laid out that y'all hopefully are playing with, and you're going to need dice. Now, I've got about 17 dice right here. You may need 17, you may need 20. I would suggest you getting as much dice as you possibly can. So you're going to need dice. Now, the next item is you're going to need a fork. I've got a plastic one because I'm here at the church, but you're going to need a fork. It doesn't matter if it's plastic, if it's metal, if it's a silver one or whatever. You're going to need a fork. And then at the end of the lesson tonight, I will tell you guys how you're going to use this fork with the dice. The other thing that you're going to need, now not everybody's going to have a set of these. We do at our house just because we collect things like this. I don't know why, but if you've got them, you're also going to need a set of chopsticks. So if you've got chopsticks, go ahead and grab those. Grab a fork, grab some dice, and then we will use those items for the game after our gathering message, lesson, whatever.
Sermon.
Yeah, sermon. I'm not doing sermon. We're not. This is not sermon. So, all right. So tonight we're going to talk about how we need to change some things in our lives. Today in our society, a lot of people are all about hate. I'm not trying to start anything political here, but with our president and politics in general, I can say this very confidently. People either love you or they hate you. And it seems like everyone is about hate these days. And it's a thing to just be hateful. Now, Scripture tells us that as Christians, we need to be about love. Jesus tells us we need to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and we need to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so we need to be about love. So how in our lives do we make that switch from being about hate to being about love? Make that switch in your life about hating other people and saying hateful things and doing hateful things to being about love and loving other people and saying loving things and doing loving things. It's probably one of the hardest things in our lives to switch. But Jesus wants us to make that switch in our lives. And when I think about love and when I think about hate, there's great ways to compare this. So, food. There are some foods that I love, and there are some foods that I hate. Sorry to say that, but I do hate some foods. So what are some foods that I love? And if you're on Instagram, why don't you put down some foods that you love? If you're in YouTube, and you can comment, which YouTube looks like it's struggling, and I'm not exactly sure why it is. So, yeah. But anyways, put down some foods that you love. So, what are some foods that I love? I love homemade pizzas. I love pizza in general, but I really love making homemade pizzas. I love putting all kinds of toppings on it. I'm one of those people that loves the banana peppers, the jalapenos, all of the meats, the onions, the black olives, the peppers, everything. I love just loading up the pizzas, and I especially love pizza on a thin crust. Thin crust is one of my favorites, and that's what I love to do is thin crust pizza. What's a food that I hate? I hate stuffing. cannot stand stuffing. Thanksgiving rolls around and Chrissy makes a huge spread when her parents come into town, and we've got all kinds of food in there, and she makes these. They smell great. They smell absolutely amazing, but she makes these things. They're stuffing, apple stuffing muffins. And it's got chunks of apple in it, and it's got all that stuffing in it. But I can't stand stuffing. Even though it smells good, there's a flavor in every stuffing that I've ever had that is the same, and I cannot stand it. And since I was a little kid, I've never liked stuffing. It's never been one of those things that I enjoyed eating. So I love eating pizza, and I hate eating stuffing. You know what? There are some movies that I absolutely love. And there are some movies that I absolutely hate. One movie in particular that I absolutely love, everybody's going to think that I'm going to say one thing, and I'm going to flip it on you right now. I like the movie Braveheart. It's one of my favorite movies. I judge movies on how well they are made and how well the story is based on how many times you can rewatch that movie and still enjoy it. And Braveheart's one of those movies that I can rewatch over and over and over again and enjoy it every time just because of the story and the action and the humor and everything that's involved in that movie. I absolutely love watching Braveheart. Now, what's a movie that I hate? Oh gosh, what's the name of that movie? It's not The Notebook. It's Chrissy would yell it out right now. Message in a Bottle. I absolutely hate that movie. Cannot stand it. Chrissy likes it. She made me watch it when we were in college with her roommates and this, that, and the other. And I can't stand that movie. Message in a Bottle. We'll never watch it again. If it comes on TV and the girls are watching it, I'll go find something else to do. But in our lives, we polarize ourselves when we absolutely love things and absolutely hate things. But we should not be about hating other people. In our lives, God wants us to flip that hate for others into love and make that change in our lives. So when I was thinking about this, it reminded me of a guy in college. And tonight we're going to be talking about making that flip, that switch in our lives with the things that come out of our mouths, with the things that we say to and about other people. So switching from hate to love in the way that we talk, in the way that we speak, in the things that we say. So it made me start thinking about a guy in college who told a story of a guy who went to a public university, and he didn't have the advantage of going to a private Christian university. And when he got to this camp to work at the camp in the summer, and all of the guys were sitting around the room, and they were doing pretty much what a lot of college age guys do. And, hey man, you're so stupid, I can't believe you did. And they were just ragging on each other and making fun of each other. And it was all in good fun. Nobody was saying anything really that was hurtful or damaging to other people. But they were just kind of, talking about each other, talking to each other, and throwing out hurtful or hateful things to each other in a joking way. And here sat this guy who went to a different college, who didn't know anybody in the room, and he got really upset, and he said, hey, listen guys, out of everybody else in the world that's on the face of this earth, we of all people should not be about tearing each other down. Even in a joking way, even in a manner that's, hey, I'm saying this as a joke, but I kind of really mean it just a little teeny tiny bit. Or even talking about people behind their backs. Of all people that's on the face of this earth right now, that should not be what we as followers or believers are about. We should be about loving others, not hating others. So tonight, let's look at a verse out of the book of Ephesians and see what Paul has to say to the Ephesians and to us about changing the things that we say in our lives. So Paul writes this book to Ephesus, And Ephesus was a pretty popular town back in Paul's day. It was a very busy city. They had a lot of commerce going on. They had a lot of businesses going on. It was right there on the Sea of or the Mediterranean Sea, not the Sea of Galilee. It was right there on the Mediterranean Sea. So there were ships that were coming and going, and there were people all over. There were rich people that lived in Ephesus, and there were very poor people that lived in Ephesus. There were very religious people that lived in Ephesus, and people who didn't believe in anything at all whatsoever. And not only were they religious, but they were religious about many different things. And so all of those things combined, put them in a pot, stir them up, they provide some pretty volatile things that could be done there in the city of Ephesus. And I can only imagine that the way that we are in our country today about politics, about the economy, about things that we believe about God and things that maybe we don't believe about God, and just how angry we can get when someone starts talking about something that we don't agree with. I can imagine that that's what Ephesus was like, pretty much mirrored today with the way that we are in our society and in our culture today. And I don't think that Paul would want us to act this way, and I don't think that Jesus would want us to act this way. And in fact, I think the reason that Paul wrote this in the book of Ephesus, we're going to look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, the reason that Paul wrote this to the Christians in Ephesus is because he wanted them to change the culture. And we can do the same thing in our lives. We can start to change the culture in our lives with the way that we talk to other people and the way that we talk about other people. Remember, we're flipping that switch from being about from being about hate to being about love. So let's look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, and see what Paul wrote to the people in Ephesus, but what Paul also writes to us today. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, it says, "No rotten talk or unwholesome speech," that's what some translations say, "no rotten talk should come from your mouth." So first of all, right off the bat, Paul is encouraging the Christians in Ephesus. He's saying, listen, don't let anything come out of your mouth that is unwholesome, as some translations say. But I like the word rotten better, because what that relates to is a piece of rotten fruit. Now, there is absolutely nothing worse than going to the refrigerator, opening up that fruit drawer, getting an apple out and looking at one side of the apple and going, oh man, this apple looks great. It looks like it's fresh. And you go to take a bite out of it and you feel the backside of that apple and it's all squishy. And you turn that apple around and it's completely rotten on the other side. It smells funny. It looks funny. And I'm sure that if you tasted it, it would even taste funny too. Nobody wants to eat a rotten apple. Nobody wants to eat rotten vegetables. Nobody wants to eat rotten meat. Nobody wants to drink rotten milk. In fact, one of the things that I've learned about Madison, my youngest daughter, since all of this stuff of being at home, is if she gets a jug of milk out of the refrigerator, and let's say today's April the 26th, is it not? Today's April the 26th. So if she pulled out a milk jug and it said the milk expired on April the 25th, she'd be like, nope, not drinking it, putting it back. Right. She wouldn't touch it. And I'm like, it's still good. It's not rotten. It's not gross. It doesn't have mold flipping around on it and stuff. But anyways, nobody wants rotten stuff. And what Paul compares our speech to, our hateful speech, is he compares it to something that's rotten. Now, this is why Paul compares it to something that's rotten, because if you take a rotten apple and you put it in a bag full of fresh apples, are those fresh apples going to make the rotten apple fresh? No. More than likely, the rotten apple is going to make the fresh apples rotten. Same with meat. If you take a rotten meat and you put it with good meat that's not rotten, the maggots that are in that rotten meat are going to get in the good meat and they're going to turn it rotten too. And I think what Paul is saying here, and he's showing us, is we have an opportunity to either use rotten speech and corrupt and make other people's lives rotten and have them repeat the rotten, awful things that we're saying to other people, and then that just creates more rotten speech in the lives of other people. Or we can change the way that we speak, and instead of being rotten, let's look at the way that Paul changes it. And he says at the end of verse 29, he says, but only what is good for the building up of someone in need, in order to give grace to those who hear. So Paul says, don't use rotten speech, but instead of using rotten speech, he says, build other people up in their lives. So find ways to speak to people that encourage them. Find ways to speak to people that build them up. Find ways to be an encouragement in the life of someone else instead of tearing them down. If you're in a situation with your friends where they're tearing someone apart, either leave the conversation or find something positive to say and steer the conversation in a different way. Paul says, flip that switch in your life from hate to love. First, by changing the way that you speak to and about other people. Don't let your speech be rotten, but let your speech be an encouragement to others, to build other people up. You can start being an encourage. You can start loving by changing the way that you speak to and about others. Don't let your speech be rotten. Instead, build others up with your speech. Think about how we can change our culture today, especially online with social media. Think how you could change the culture of social media today if you started posting things that were encouraging and positive instead of hateful and rotten. We can change our culture by flipping that switch from being about hate to being about love. First, in the way that we talk to and about other people. So, right now, if you have got your dice and if you have got either your fork and or your chopsticks, this is what you're going to do. Now, I don't care how you do this. This is totally up to you how you divide this up. It could either be an individual competition against the other people in your family, or this could be a team event. But the first thing that I want you to do with the fork is I want you to take the fork and have someone hold the fork, and either their teammate take one dice at a time and place it on the fork, and then they've got to hold the fork and see how many dice they can stack up on that fork until the dice, I think I only got 5 earlier. There's 4. There's 5. And see, I just dropped it. So what you do is you take the fork, you stack the dice on the fork, and see who could get the most dice stacked up on the fork. You could either do this individually, or you could have a teammate stack the dice while you hold the fork. However you want to do it, that's the first game. The second game, oh, and if that's not challenging enough, if y'all are like got 20 dice stacked up and you're like, yeah, this is pretty awesome, make it about stacking the dice up on the fork and then walking from one side of the room to the other side of the room without dropping them. You know, start with 1 dice, walk to and fro, 2 dice, 2 and back, 3 dice, and so on until somebody drops it. Now, I'm going to throw this out here now. With the chopsticks, I think I will like this one better. So, take the chopsticks, have your dice. Then what you got to do is you got to take the chopsticks, grab one of the dice, put it in the middle of the table, grab another dice, put it on the table, and what you got to do is you got to use the chopsticks to stack the dice. I think I only got 5 on this one too. And see, I just dropped that one. But use the chopsticks to stack the dice up on the table and see who can get the highest stack of dice this way. It's not as easy as it seems. I think, am I going to get this one? Jordan blew on it earlier and knocked them all over. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can I get 7?
Let's go.
There's 7. Quit blowing.
Too far.
8. Can I get 8? What is up with YouTube? It's not working, is it? 8. Can I do 9? This one's wanting to. So I got 8. So those are the 2 games that y'all can do as a family at home. Thanks for watching tonight. I will see y'all this coming Wednesday night. I'll be right back here on Instagram and on YouTube. Hopefully we'll get YouTube figured out. If it's lagging behind, y'all, as soon as I'm done, it should upload and you should be able to watch it without it stuttering. So thanks for watching. I will see y'all this coming Wednesday.